This is Andy Gutierrez from StarWars.com, and you are listening to Coffee with Kenobi with Dan Z. This is the podcast you're looking for.
This is James Arnold Taylor, and you're listening to Coffee with Kenobi. I have a good feeling about this.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to CWK. This is your weekly place for Star Wars community and conversation. It is a spoiler-free podcast, as you know. So if you have not seen episodes 1 and 2, or parts 1 and 2 of Obi-Wan Kenobi, the brand new Disney Plus series that premiered during Star Wars Celebration Anaheim 2022, then I would stop or pause and come back after, because we're going to break this thing down kind of like CWK Pour-Over style, which is our Patreon show. We didn't get a chance to review 1 and 2 separately because they all dropped during Celebration. It was a very, very crazy time, as many of you know. So we're going to try our best to talk about parts 1 and 2 with you here, and then we'll go into our regular weekly schedule with different guests. So for the first 2 parts of Obi-Wan Kenobi, we're going to have first Tom Gross.
Well, hello, everybody. Welcome. It's good to be here talking Obi-Wan Kenobi. We've been waiting a little while for this, so excited.
Yeah, it was quite an ordeal to finally get a chance to see the first 2 episodes, because it premiered at Celebration in very much a Hollywood style, but we weren't able to be a part of that because we purposefully skipped out. So we go to the Celebration podcast meetup, and I'm very glad that we did. But eventually we got to it because we were stayed up so late and woke up so early at Celebration. We finally got a chance, 3 days after it came out, to watch it, which is crazy. But it's not just me and Tom. We also have with us the co-creator of Coffee with Kenobi, Cory Clubb.
Hey, I'm excited to talk about this. Wow.
Yeah. Did Tom say hey when Cory said hey?
He did. Hey.
Tom, you're Tom. Hey. You're not Cory.
It's okay.
I was more like, I was going to start cheering.
Yeah. I thought that was very nice of you. All right. So look, before we get into this, Tom, what was your overall what was your anticipation like before you saw the first episode?
This is a series that had so much buzz, I feel like, and I was sort of internalizing that buzz as well. So I had high expectations for this going in. Really excited. Ewan McGregor, it's one of the original characters that we're going to get a Disney Plus show for. So I was really excited about it. And, I wanted to say real quickly that what was I going to say? Oh, because we couldn't see it at Celebration, I was really impressed with all of the fans at Celebration who were super respectful to not talk about Obi-Wan Kenobi on the floor. Yes. In different places. I didn't hear anything about the show the entire time I was there, except for excitement for it. Nobody in the circles that we ran around in, as well as just standing in line here or there, nobody was out there blurting out spoilers throughout. So hats off, give them a big hand to all the people in Celebration for not talking Obi-Wan Kenobi while there. That was awesome.
I agree with that. And even at the podcast stage, we said, look, we're giving our top 5 Obi-Wan Kenobi moments, but we haven't actually seen yet. So this is going to be pre-Disney Plus series, which actually worked out well because half the room had not seen it yet. So I feel like that went well. But yeah, I was appreciative of that as well. Cory, what was your overall anticipation thoughts on this before you watched it?
Yeah, I mean, coming into this series is kind of up there to me with like the Solo film when it was kind of talked about. You're such a high-profile character to own a series, and it's interesting because Ewan McGregor, like you said, is back, and I think he fits the age bracket very well for this time period for this character, and also like just what story could they tell? What's going on? It's just wandering the desert. I didn't know what to expect, what to drive off of, but and they do such a good job of just giving us little bite-sized chunks in those teasers to just get us initially kind of like excited, and they don't show a ton, which I appreciate so much from just kicking off the series. And so again, that was the buzz through Celebration. Was Kenobi was like, you could feel it as you walked around. It was coming. It's coming. It's going to be out there. It's going to be live. It's not just one episode. It's 2 episodes. It's going to be live. And I was kind of texting with my kids back and forth, and we are kind of making pacts around like, hey, well, we'll try to wait for you to get home. And I said, well, I might watch with the guys. I might be able to see on the big screen. We didn't really know what to happen as far as the Celebration as that coincided together, but. Man, my anticipation level was huge for this, just because Celebration lined up exactly with it, and it was fun to experience it with all our friends. We talked about, and be able just to have that buzz around the series. I mean, I'm getting more excited about this show just because of the I don't know, anticipation around it. The Caden Christian's back. I listened to the Coffee with Kenobi interviews just in anticipation. Like that was just like all these things were lining up for just not for our show and hitting these milestones, but just our fandom. It was just so big, and it's just to me, it's like I hope they do a good job. I hope it executes, and it is a phenomenal success. So I was going in hoping that this would just wow me, and oh boy, did it ever!
Okay, that's cool. For me, I've always liked Obi-Wan Kenobi. I've appreciated him, but he never rushes to the top of the list for me as far as favorite characters go. He just never has. I mean, I've always liked Ewan's performance. I've always liked Saul Guinness's performance in particular. Of course, I love James Arnold Taylor as Obi-Wan Kenobi, but he's never on my top 5 list for no reason other than I don't know. He was just there. He was Obi-Wan Kenobi. He was cool. He was fine. But for some reason, in 2019 at D23, when Kathleen Kennedy came out with Ewan McGregor, and they said he was going to play Obi-Wan Kenobi again, there's just kind of a spark. And I thought, okay, this could be cool. All right. And then as details come out, and we find out that Hayden Christensen is going to play Darth Vader, I felt like it was different. It became my most anticipated Disney Plus series period of anything, Marvel, Disney, Star Wars, whatever. Because I just felt like we had a potential for something spectacular. Then I found out Deborah Chow was doing it, and it increased it even more because her episodes of The Mandalorian in season 1 were dynamic and captivating, some great choreography with the fight sequences. And then, so I was really excited. And then at Celebration, it did such a great job of hyping it, and then having the good fortune of being able to talk to Moses Ingram and Deborah Chow and Ewan McGregor and Hayden Christensen. I was pretty fired up, but I came a long way from where I did before I even knew there was going to be a series. So it ended up being really, really positive. So Tom, let's go back to you. We're going to combine episodes 1 and 2. Well, just so you can give your overall thoughts, but I think it's okay to give a set. We're going to talk about them together, but maybe give a separate grade for part 1 and a separate grade for part 2, because I definitely have separate grades for both.
Yeah, I do as well.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, just give your grade for both and overall feelings on the first 2.
Yeah, so I would say that I do have 2 different grades for the 2 shows. Episode 1, I would probably give a B+. I don't even know. I felt like just and maybe Dan, it has to do with that we tried starting that show twice while at Celebration at like 1:32 a.m. But it didn't seem to dig in right away for me. The opening was great, but then it sort of hit a lull for me, but redeems itself at the end for sure. Episode 2, I give an A-2. Definitely had a good build to it, some action in there, and got the story driving. So B+ and A-, episodes 1 and 2 respectively.
And overall, good stuff. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, Cory, what about you?
Yeah, it's interesting because I guess I hadn't thought about giving these letter grade. I kind of see them almost together because they were released that way. I don't know. It's hard to separate them a little bit to me. But overall, it just exceeded my expectations. I feel like the first episode I'm going to give a solid A because I think it just gave me exactly what I wanted and even more. And that's what I expect from the show. I wanted something, that keyed on Kenobi's time and basically driving a brand new story, and that's what it did. that then the second episode really kind of boosted that for me, as it layered in new things as we learned, about some of the characters, and then we learned about, what Kenobi understands and knows so far. So I give that one an A+. So again, it kind of goes hand in hand. You have to watch one to get the other, but definitely both are excellent episodes.
So I would give the first one an A-, and I would give the second one an A. The A- is because it was very good. The first time I watched it, I watched each of them twice. I felt like it was very, very slow, and I know that was by design. I know that was on purpose. I know that was so you could feel like you're Obi-Wan Kenobi. Every day is the same, kind of slowly plodding through life. I like the notion of Obi-Wan losing his way. I mean, he's still doing his job, but he's not himself anymore. He's not in touch with the Force. He's not with his peers. He's far from the mighty Jedi that was one of the most important and impactful in the Clone Wars and the galaxy. It has a great ending. I really like the ending, which we'll talk about later. So it's an A-. The other one's an A because it was amazing. It had some great action, some great twists. And then to me, and one of the most unforgettable moments in the history of Star Wars happens in part 2 as well.
Oh.
So there we have it. Gentlemen, typically what we do is we give, like when we review these things on Pour-Over, because this is a bit of an abbreviated review because we want to try to catch up with everything. We kind of talk about highlights and overall power and impact, and then we'll talk about things that maybe didn't work. So, Tom, how about we all give 2 things that worked and 1 thing that didn't? How about that? And you may have nothing. You may say, you know what, it all worked for me. I'm going to give a third one. That's totally fine. Tom, why don't you go ahead and start?
So the first thing that really worked for me was just the big surprise, and that was the introduction of a very young Princess Leia. Totally worked for me. I loved the aspect of a bit of a, like, that's what the story is going to be about. Like here, going in, I was expecting a story about Obi-Wan Kenobi and his involvement on Tatooine, and perhaps something to do with, Luke Skywalker, but not the story that's to be told here in the first 2 episodes. And so I really liked that. Considering that I traditionally am not a huge fan of children on stage or on screen that much. I mean, it has to be done, and many children do it just fine. But I thought the actress, and I don't recall her name, she did fine. I didn't have any problems with her. I believed in her as the Princess of Alderaan, and really kind of appreciated getting to know her mom. We know Bail already, and I liked watching him as a father with a daughter, myself being a father with daughters. I kind of liked his angle in sort of like teaching her lessons. And so I really enjoyed that, related with that as a father. So that whole storyline, which I guess is the storyline, but that twist really worked for me. I'm a big believer in that story, and I can't wait to see the resolution of it or the growth of it. A second thing that
I must admit, I was worried about that because I know that you've sometimes struggled with child actors in the past. I'm really relieved to hear you say that, because, and I'm going to break a protocol for a second and realize to say, look, Moses Ingram received a lot of horrific messages, very racist, nasty things were said, and also the young lady who plays Leia has been receiving some negative things online as well. Yeah, and that is just awful, despicable, and very, very, very sad. Ewan McGregor had a very eloquent thing that StarWars.com posted. It looks like he just recorded quickly in his car, but he did video. Impactful. I normally don't comment on things like that because I feel like my show needs to be an escape to stay away from that kind of thing. But I feel like it needed to be said. Look, racism and hate have no place in this culture and in this fandom, and they're certainly not welcome at Coffee with Kenobi. Yeah. Okay, back to business.
Did you want me to go into my second thing as well?
Yes, please.
Sure. Okay, because that's somewhere that was where I was kind of headed, and that was with the Inquisitors. The Inquisitors really worked for me. And help me out, Reva.
Reva.
Reva. Thank you.
Third sister.
Reva totally worked for me. I liked how there was, most of the Inquisitors, at least that we saw in Rebels, fell right into line with what the Grand Inquisitor said. They followed their rules directly. Even, when Vader says something, you do it. Or as we know in Empire Strikes Back, you die. And so to see an Inquisitor that is so passionate that she will overstep or go behind the back of the Grand Inquisitor, that is massively intriguing to me. There's a story there that I want to know why I cannot wait to find out what the story is behind her rage at Obi-Wan Kenobi, that she will go behind the back of the Grand Inquisitor and work in different ways than what his wishes are. And so that really worked for me. I'm compelled to watch the story and to continue watching the story to see what Reva's what the background, the backstory is on Reva and what drives that in third sister so hard.
Interesting. Cory, what about you?
Yeah, so two things that worked for me. Kenobi worked for me. Ewan McGregor, he talked about not having a hard time getting the accent back and getting back in that character a little bit. It's been quite some time, so I totally get that, and the fact that he's got to come back around to it. But it just worked for me. I understood his loneliness. I understood his almost confusion. He was trying to do a mundane life, like you said, and it was interesting to see that. Like, what does he do all day? He can't just sit in his cave and twiddle his thumbs. And the fact that he is disconnected from the Force, he's trying to call on Qui-Gon Jinn, his master, and it's like that's a void. Like, just like I almost want to I feel sorry for him, because it's like like you said, he was the height of his power, and here he is. Almost, they called him the wandering Jedi in the Black Series figure. That he's wandering. He's not really sure he knows what he's supposed to do, but even that maybe is getting a little bit confused. And he has dealings with Owen Lars. I thought that was a really important conversation. That's something we don't think about. Like, how many times did he think through, I need to train this boy eventually. I need to, but I can't practice the Force. I can't do these things. I'm no good. Like, he just has no value in himself. And that's so interesting from his confidence we see coming off of, the Clone Wars and those films. So it's so interesting. And I think it's a great portrayal of this dark time for Kenobi and Ben, as we see him kind of go through life. Another thing, I would agree with you, Tom. The Inquisitors are awesome. I love them. They're nasty. They're mean, and they're. I mean, I'm gonna say it. When Reva, they're talking to that crowd, and she's like, "Let's start taking hands." And I was like, "Okay, whatever." And she's the first person who talks. She's like, "Whoosh, gone hand." I was like, "Oh, wow, that means business." I was like, "What?" I mean, yes, it's brutal, and yes, it's kind of gross, but like we've seen it in Star Wars before. But like, what a great statement to put out there that these Inquisitors mean business, especially Reva. She is on a mission. She is vile. She is cunning, and like I didn't expect to really understand this character too much, but like she is so intriguing to me. I find so interesting that what is her backstory? Like you said, what is she? What are her motives? And these Inquisitors are stepping all over each other just to win favor, or I don't, have one up on each other. And it's just like it's so interesting to see that, where we see the Jedi who work together and friendships, and it's just like they're just vile and evil things, and so it's like they're scary, and it's just interesting to see that them work through the system. And then can you imagine being part of a town and they're just mowing, coming through your town looking for lost Jedi or escaped a Jedi or whatnot, and like you'd be terrified, I think. So that's just, I think they did a great job of portraying that and coming across that way in the sense of those characters. I also want just a bonus thing I liked. I loved Leia. I thought she was great, and that whole storyline, how it shifted. Oh, very well done. Like to me, it's like it wasn't expected, but then in my head, I also felt like it was expected. Does that make sense?
It
You know,
does.
it's
It does.
interesting. And
After you see, you're like, well, of course, yeah, that makes sense.
exactly. And like, of course we wouldn't focus on Luke. Like we know Luke's story so well, but like let's give Leia some time to shine in this really important time for her. So it's really interesting, and it made the whole series to me very exciting because it's a brand new adventure that we can just rewatch and enjoy. So one thing I did not like.
Oh, wait, we're gonna get to
Get to
we're
that?
gonna loop around. Yeah,
Okay, gotcha.
yeah.
Perfect. I'll save it.
I want to jump in here with a couple of things. I think the main thing that worked is it was expectedly unexpected because you've got great people telling this story. Deborah Chow, again, having the good
Yes.
fortune to speak
Yeah.
with her and seeing getting a very much a small little glimpse into her style and her storytelling and her beliefs and what inspires her as an artist and a storyteller. It really shines through because forever I thought, seeing Obi-Wan Kenobi in the desert for 19 years is not that interesting. John Jackson Miller's novel Kenobi certainly knocked it out of the park,
Yeah.
but I knew we weren't going to get a repeat of that. In fact, I didn't know what we were going to get and if it would even tie over at all. It didn't, and it was phenomenal. The big draw, I mentioned this at the beginning of this, was that, well, I've always liked and appreciated Obi-Wan Kenobi. He wasn't a favorite character of mine. Now I feel like he is. And it's solely because of Ewan McGregor. He is so charismatic and so captivating because he goes through the steps of the hero's journey. I mean, he very much refuses the call. He definitely doesn't think that he's worthy anymore. He hasn't practiced the Force in a while, which also shows that he has lost his way, his belief in everything that held him together. It's really quite moving. I found his loss of faith, and it reminds me a lot, although for different reasons, to Luke in The Last Jedi, which I thought was a nice little parallel. And then at the end of the episode, when he kind of moves his rope to the side and you see his lightsaber hanging, wow, did I love that. In fact, the scene where he goes and he digs up his lightsabers was so wonderful. And it reminded me very much of Galaxy's Edge, actually, how some of the nicer lightsabers are sold in boxes like that, and you open them up and there they are. That's how Leia's and Luke's from The Rise of Skywalker came, and that's how Ahsoka's came in a recent thing that the Disney parks or Shop Disney did. So I love that. I love that mythological stuff, especially when it comes to the lightsaber itself, which I talked a little bit about in the panel. And that really, really moves me quite a bit. I mean, I said we could all go around and say one, then come back, and you guys have already given a couple, but I'm sure there are more that you could come up with for sure.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, Ewan was the first main one for me, and the way the story was told, and then the intricate way that they this was the tone of this was scary.
Mm-hmm.
When Leia showed up, I actually sighed out loud. I gasped because I'm like, oh my gosh, we're gonna see Leia. I thought we'd see Luke bits and pieces, perhaps from a distance, because I know he can't really interact with Luke because of what happens in A New Hope. But him interacting with a younger Leia, or seeing Leia being there as integral part of the story. Jimmy Smits is there too. Getting to know Brea Organa, her mother, was absolutely wonderful. And then Lola, the latest droid, and her companion. I found her captivating. Look, being a child actor must be difficult. She does a better job than me as an adult, that's for sure. But what I think what works the most for me is that there's a wit and a sass and a persistent stubbornness with positive intent that is very much Leia Organa. And I thought the characterization of that was quite magnificent.
I would agree. As I was watching her acting, with, of course, my typical critical eye, I definitely thought they were working many angles of Leia that we know into this youthful version of her, and I can see how that would develop into the Leia that we know. So I think that's what was really well done, and probably a lot of directing went into that. But then it also takes a talented actress to be able to follow that directing and portray it. So hats off to her. It was really good acting and directing in that.
Let's take a quick break and look at episode 2 or chapter 2 or part 2 of Obi-Wan Kenobi. This is Coffee with Kenobi.
This is Vanessa Marshall, and you're listening to Coffee with Kenobi.
Absolutely. Are there any other key points? We basically sort of covered part one with our initial comments. Why don't we focus a little bit more on part two for the second go round?
Sure.
Sure. And Tom, you want to start, or I can start, or
I'll let one of you guys start because they blend together so well that I'm trying to think of instances from.
I want to say So part two for me, I mean, I guess I'm trying to think in general. So I loved the forgive me the world, the underbelly world they go to Dio, which is is cut off kind of from the network. It's all like this crime world. It's all kind of it's really gross and I mean, you get that feeling of grime. And Obi-Wan's like he's like if you drop my dad in Galaxy's Edge, like where do I go? What's going on? Like it's like it's crazy to think that like even Obi-Wan is kind of out of tune of where to look first, and it's giving you that effect of crime and underbelly type things. But the bright spot for me in that world in Dayu is the Grifter Jedi, and I forgot the character's name. They're all kind of new to me, but and the actor who plays him is super charming. I found myself kind of being won over by him, the way he he grifts people to utilize his fake Jedi powers and kind of get them. He has kind of a heart of gold. I think I read something online that said like he's a grifter Jedi, but he's a heart of gold or something. So I really turned out to really like that character. I think it was fun to see him on the screen in a unique way and probably pretty dangerous if you think about that if he's pretending quote to be a Jedi, he could be hunted down just because of who he's pretending to be and whatnot. So, but I thought it really cool that he was kind of in the end helping Obi-Wan and Leia escape. And then I got 2 moments left. The moment where Obi-Wan does, like he's chasing after Leia, he's getting attacked on the rooftops, and she's hanging at the wire, and she drops. And like, I mean, as a fan, you kind of know what's going to happen. Oh, he's going to use it for, but like I said, Ewan McGregor has done such a good job characterizing this lost Jedi who's lost his way. He just needs one little push of the Force that he could just reach out and do something, and like you think that if he was a master he could just snap his fingers and it'd be fine, but like you can tell it's strenuous, it's hard, he's disconnected, but he's just pushing everything into it. And I think that was just a great moment. It was so cool to see him prove himself to Leia, but also prove himself to himself in that moment. Like, oh, I can still have a little bit of Force within me. I still have this ability, and that I think it was interesting. When I flip a little bit towards the end of that episode, and they're in the warehouse, or Reva's coming into the warehouse, and Obi-Wan is hiding as Leia's going to the little shuttle, and she's like, Obi-Wan, I got chills.
Yeah.
Again, this character is she's conniving. Like, all I know is she's just gonna just destroy this dude because he's like unsure of himself. He's fearful. He's letting fear control his emotions. Like hello, like this is not the Obi-Wan we know and love. Like this is crazy, and like you don't know what she's gonna do next. She is chaos, as D&D folks like to say. So it's interesting to see what she's doing next, and she stabs the Grand Inquisitor, and I was just like, what? And then she reveals that Anakin Skywalker is still alive, and Kenobi's face, it's just like the screen locks on him, and his face just kind of drops. He doesn't say no or doesn't scream. There's just his intense eyes. Like, Ewan McGregor did such a great job of just personifying that emotion just in his eyes only was just a great moment, and something I guess I kind of knew but didn't think of right in that moment. I thought, oh, you're right. He wouldn't know that he survived, and it makes sense. It's a little thing that just, I don't know. It's just you felt even for him in that moment of how much it was hard for him to hear that and realize that. So again, that's why I give this episode an A+. I think there's just so much going on and a lot of fun.
His name is Kumail Nanjiani.
Thank you.
The actor he plays is Haja. He was in the Eternals.
Okay.
I thought I recognized him. He's really most famous for The Big Sick.
I haven't seen that.
And he is a comedian and he's an actor. He does have a very commanding, charming presence, undoubtedly. Yeah. So that's a good call. Yeah, sure. So let's see. For me, episode 2 was an A because it's brilliant. I absolutely love the interplay between Obi-Wan and Leia. I like how even when she's in danger, she still has got this. She really gives him she really teases him and is sarcastic and pushes him. And there are several moments where he says, "How old are you?" And she says 10. He goes, you don't sound like you're 10. And she says, "Thank you." And and then when he says you remind him of someone, and we know he's talking about Padme, I found it to be a really beautiful part of the entire lore. That I didn't know that I wanted or needed, but now that I have it, I can't imagine my Star Wars without it. So I really, really liked it a lot. The Inquisitor, the third sister, is quite scary in this one, and she's in the first one too. But she really scares me, and she's haunting. And we don't really know why she is so obsessed with finding Obi-Wan Kenobi, why he is her white whale. And I'm using a metaphorical reference to the classic Herman Melville book, Moby Dick, because in that book, Captain Ahab is obsessed with finding the Moby Dick, the white whale, and he will stop at nothing, no matter who gets hurt in the process. And that, I think there's an interesting little comparison there. But the thing that works for me the most out of this, first of all, there's some great kung fu. There's a great cameo by Tamira Morrison as an older clone.
Oh, yeah.
Which was awesome.
That was cool.
Really, really, really liked it a lot. But the moment when he realizes that Anakin Skywalker is alive and that he's gone very, very, very bad, and the look on Ewan's face, the emotion, the pathos there, the internal conflict that we've seen throughout the first 2 parts of the series, that he's struggled with, and how he blames himself. In fact, that's why he refuses to call and won't help Leia in the first place, because he feels like he's already failed someone. And Bail Organa's like, that's not why. You didn't get to save him, but we move on. We make mistakes. You do have a chance to save my daughter. You got to do it. And coupled with the fact that Leia doesn't feel like she's a real Organa anyway. There's a lot of great identity crisis stuff I think we all respond to as people. But again, when they show the close-up and you can feel his emotions, and he's almost having he's not having an anxiety attack, but he's definitely having a severe hard time breathing, and he's very upset and traumatized by the fact that Anakin actually is alive and there's something really, really wrong with him. One of my favorite moments in all of Star Wars. I love the honesty and the pain there. It really, really spoke to me tremendously. And I think that sold me more than anything. I also like the fact that when he was fighting, there's that threat there where he's going to ignite his lightsaber, but he doesn't do it. He's gone out of his way to show that he's not going to use the Force, because he's lost touch with it, and he doesn't want to draw attention to himself because of fear. And as any good Jedi student knows, fear is what leads to the dark side. So the fact that Obi-Wan is motivated by fear for a lot of the series is why I think he struggles so much, which I think is really interesting. But then at the end, when he says Anakin, and all of a sudden, burn, and I have goosebumps now. And they show Hayden Christensen in the back to tank with the mask on, and you hear Darth Vader's breathing, and then it ends. Boom. I thought, this is the greatest thing ever. I absolutely loved it. I thought it was tremendous storytelling. And both of these first 2 episodes, they really know how to end in a cliffhanger that makes you you can't wait for more. So I'm still not going to move to an A+. I don't know why.
There you go. Do it.
But an A is great. It's
A
great.
plus is better.
Yes. We'll wait. We'll see what happens in the other episodes. All right.
Oh man, do you want to get mine? I don't have too much to add because you guys covered really everything that I would.
But you'll have a different way to explain it. So
sure. So the thing that really stood out to me in this one that ties in, it actually ties into the first episode as well, is this concept that Obi-Wan Kenobi lost the way. So many examples throughout the second episode where we saw him struggle, and you could see the internal struggle. Like he would normally, as General Kenobi or Jedi Master Kenobi, would have just easily handled some situations. There's the moment in the when the thugs or the bounty hunters kind of have him cornered in the hallway, and I'm looking at these guys going, "You guys are nobodies." Like Obi-Wan Kenobi has taken on guys 10 times more talented and dangerous than you. And he ends up in a fist fight with them. Now he takes them fairly easily, but you can see that he has lost his skill. You know, they get some good punches in on him. He gets some good punches in on them. And it's Obi-Wan like we haven't seen before. You know, a fist fighting Obi-Wan, not using the Force to his ability, is something that we see that we've never seen before. Thus showing that he has lost the way. Him struggling. Cory, you mentioned the instance where Leia is falling and he uses the Force to keep her from landing. And you can see in his face that is a major task. It made me think of Luke Skywalker attempting to lift the X-Wing. And I was like, he's not going to make it. He doesn't believe he can do this, but of course he does. Thankfully, because we'd have to rewrite a lot of story if he didn't. But so we saw that. Sorry, it's taking me a minute because I'm having to rewrite my things that didn't work for me because they are quickly. It's like in Back to the Future when the brother's arm starts coming back after I'm gonna have to change some things here on the fly. But the other thing that really worked for me in the second one, which I thought was more of a gasp moment than the Anakin is alive moment, although very impacting. I cannot believe that I witnessed Reva running the Grand Inquisitor through. When I think of how powerful he is in taking, with all of those struggles that Kanan and the Ghost struggled with in that, and I'm trying to think. There's other people that the Grand Inquisitor, or am I thinking of someone else?
No, see, this is the challenge, and I'm assuming we'll figure it out as the series progresses. But this takes place 6 years before Star Wars Rebels, so the Inquisitor's alive in Star Wars Rebels, and Kanan eventually kills him at the end of season 1.
Yep.
So I'm not sure what's going on, but I know Lucasfilm knows what they're doing, so we'll see.
Absolutely. Sure. So anyway, to me, that was the gas moment because that's when I realized this is not the typical Grand Inquisitor, as I mentioned in my last. In my initial two things that really worked for me, that she's a different person. You both used the word haunting. Absolutely. She is a different sort of character that I don't know we've seen before. She is legit dangerous. Not that Vader isn't, but what I was thinking of when you guys are talking is, Vader doesn't have to be as violent as maybe the Inquisitors because he's the top. He's the top of the food chain. His fear is just his imposing nature. Whereas the Inquisitors, there's a pecking order there. And so she is crazy, haunting, violent, whatever it is, because she's trying to make a move on something. She's got a motivation. And so that's what makes her dangerous in my eyes. So, I also saw some things that reminded me of other parts of Star Wars. When you talked about he initially refuses the call and he has a lot of doubt in himself. It kind of reminds me of Luke. And Luke's hesitation in Rise of Skywalker of training Rey, and that I also saw some parallel to Obi-Wan's either the loss of his way or just his loneliness and the drudgery of daily life, and similarities to Rey's story on Jakku, where Rey goes and scavenges, cleans it up, takes it to Unkar Plot, gets little or nothing for it. There are similarities to that, to Obi-Wan's situation on Tatooine and the meat market. And so I don't know, I just saw some things there that was making connections around other stories of Star Wars that I really liked.
The only thing you mentioned this, that I want to talk about is when Obi-Wan does finally use the Force to save Leia. And I like the dramatic. I think it's incredible that we can constantly feel peril for Leia and Obi-Wan. We know that they survive.
Right.
That's good storytelling. If you know what's going to happen and you still are invested in the story itself, that's not easy to do. When he finally does it, and it's very much a struggle, and prime time Obi-Wan can do it with no problem. Be putting cheese on his crackers while he's doing it, but he can't do it this time because it's just so difficult. Then he gently lowers her to the ground. Just a tremendous scene. There's a lot to love, a lot to love about these first 2 episodes. So, is there anything that didn't work? And there doesn't have to be anything.
I have 2 things, and I'm not. Again, they were hard pressed to me. This is nitpicky, really. I absolutely, like I said, I loved the Leia actress and her escapades into the woods. I love her climbing the trees and counting off the ships that went by was just like, cool. Oh man, that's so cool. It's so funny because a little tidbit, my older sons watched it, and my youngest daughter Ashlyn hadn't watched it. I said, Ashlyn, you gotta watch it. You'll love it. I didn't want to spoil it for her. I said, you're gonna really like it, I think. She's like, I don't know. It just doesn't. I'm not really into it. I'm like, well, do whatever you want. She did end up watching it, and she's like, I loved Leia. And Ashlyn is also 10 years old, going on 11. So she's a little bit older. So I really resonated that Ashlyn loves to ride horses and play outside. She's kind of a tomboy, and it resonated that a lot with Ashlyn for me. And so I was just like smiling ear to ear. But having Ashlyn as a daughter, she is a little more mature, and I feel like I felt like some of the scenes where they're chasing after a kidnapper. I mean, these are kidnappers. They're not like the Three Stooges. I mean, I feel like they could have caught up to her quickly and trapped her. There's 3 of him. There's 1 of her. Yes, she's sliding through the forest, but they're tripping over branches. Like, I mean, that just didn't really work. I mean, I feel like we could have filmed that a little bit better in the sense of maybe she has, some kind of a way to get around these characters, but some of that just didn't feel right. I feel like the chase scene on that section just didn't work for me a whole lot. Again, super tiny detail. The chase scene with Kenobi on Adayu did work for me because I felt like you could lose a kid in a crowd like that. There's a lot more places to hide. I feel like that did work. Kenobi was confused. He didn't really know where he was at. He didn't know his way around. That worked for me. That made sense. So they can do it well. In some places, it just didn't work for me in the forest scene there. The second thing that didn't work for me is, we see that Leia's been kidnapped now, and Bail is basically Zoom called Kenobi out of his little cave and talking to him, and Kenobi refuses the call, like you said, on the Zoom. And then we see some time pass, and then he goes back to his cave, and Bail's there in person. I thought, dude, you are like a president of a planet. I don't understand, why don't you use your forces to go in front of her? You know where she's going. Here he's like, hey, she's going to Dayu. She's on her way. Like, you're the only one who can do this. I'm like, dude, I don't understand. Like, you have the resources to come to Tatooine and find Kenobi in his hiding spot, but you have the resources to go and get your daughter back? Like, I understand, like, it will bring too much attention to us. After what? They're your daughter. Like, I guess, I don't know. Maybe that's just the underlying tones of, like, saying maybe they don't want too much attention brought to her because she's a Skywalker heritage.
Sure.
I mean, for sure, I get that, but like, it's just, I don't know. I guess that's.
Plus, they know that when there's bad guys, they're not going to be able to handle them, but he can.
Maybe. I mean, I don't know. Again, like, he's a president of a planet, or whatever you would call it, a pastor, king, matriarch.
But I
whatever wanna
think
say.
you hit it on the head. If he sends out his royal guard or whatever they're called,
Sure.
then they're going to know that she's kidnapped. It's going to draw attention. They go out of their way to say, because she fights with her cousin, I'm not allowed to leave the planet. Right? They don't want me to have too much attention. So
Right. I get, again, it's a small thing. It's just, it seemed odd for him to show up in person to make that ask, and it's just like,
Sure.
I don't know, seems odd. Anyway, I mean, again, it's a small thing. I let it go. It still works. I move on.
Tom, what about you?
Yeah. Cory, that's a funny one that I didn't really ever occur to me. I bought it. I bought it that Bale couldn't go after her, and I guess I just assumed political reasons that I wouldn't understand. But the one that really didn't work for me is the same as your first, the chase through the forest. Even my wife called that one out right away. She's like, "Really? They what are they, zombies? They can't move their arms, right?" And it seemed like I don't know. It seemed like it could have been a little bit like what I kept thinking was that branch, like there's a branch that she goes under, and the guy just like runs right up to the branch, but doesn't try to go under it either. All I could think was, okay, as my brain is trying to like figure out why couldn't he go around it or whatever, why didn't he just go under it? There are things like that. But I have to say, even in sort of, I don't want to say disappointment's a strong word, but even in my sort of disbelief that really they couldn't capture her, there's one of my favorite moves where she slides under a branch and you see her slide down and then jump up and run. I was like, that was pretty cool. I can totally see Leia doing something like that. Yeah. And so I bought that, but the rest of the chase just didn't work for me. Now, the one that was really bothering me that I think our conversation has solved was how the first episode it seemed to drag. And I was like, okay, yeah, so Obi-Wan's on this planet. He's got the drudgery of the day. And I was like, why do I need to know about that? Okay. You guys answered that for me, because what it demonstrates is his loss and disconnection from the rest of the galaxy, his loss and disconnection of the Force. And he's really kind of a commoner, and he's lost confidence in himself. So even though I didn't officially list that as a disappointment, it was going to be, and you guys solved that for me. And Dan, before you jump into yours real quickly. Yeah, right. I forgot to mention, this is one of the things I loved. His interaction with the Jawa was just priceless.
Oh man, so funny.
That was cool. I like that relationship.
So funny.
That was great.
I love that too. That's a good.
That was great. So yeah, I had to throw that in.
I adored that as well. The only thing that didn't work for me, it worked story-wise, thematically. It was very well executed. But I remember being very aware that while I see what you're saying about the chase scene in the forest, I thought it was horrific. Because the little girl is going to be kidnapped by these three horrible people. I just felt, even though it wasn't real, the verisimilitude, the reality of that possibility was frightening. Having a little girl in peril. And I thought, well, kids are watching this. But that kind of went away before that, when Reva cuts off that person's hand. Like, this is your kids. This is not our Star Wars as kids. Like, it's definitely more PG-13-esque with the themes and the violence. There's no doubt about that. There's nothing wrong with that. It worked for me. It was very well done. But I was just aware that there's a bit of a tonal shift in how we tell our Star Wars, even more so than in The Mandalorian or the Book of Boba Fett. So it's not so. I don't really have anything that didn't work for me, but I'm just aware that this is a different in the tone itself. Very, very interesting.
Ponda Baba might have something to say about that.
I say Ponda Baba got his hand cut off. Luke got his hand cut off. Vader got his hand cut off.
It was a little bit. I don't know. There's just something different. I mean, I think a black gloved hand or a pretend monster arm that's in a white sleeve, as opposed to human flesh.
No, I get you.
That just drops off. Sure. It is different.
It's also it's a human woman that so it's and a commoner. She didn't do anything wrong.
And innocent.
Listening to Coffee with Kenobi, you are with Dan Z, the podcast you're looking for. This is
All right. Well, I feel like even though we didn't go beat by beat, I feel like we really hit the high points. Yeah. We love it. It's great. I cannot wait to talk about part 3. That is for sure. But in the meantime, Tom and Cory, my Celebration Anaheim co-pilots. Where can people find you if they want to ask you about this episode? And by the way, before you even jump into that, of course, in the CWK Cafe, the day of, I will always post a place to give your spoiler-free thoughts. And then on Saturday, you can give your spoiler-filled thoughts on the episodes. And then every week on Facebook Live, we'll give our top 5 moments from the episodes themselves. But Tom, back to you. Where can people reach out to you?
Yeah, sure. Talking about Obi-Wan Kenobi, catch me on Twitter at draftline, DRAFTLINE, or send me an email at tomg@coffeewithkenobi.com.
And Cory.
Yeah, reach out to me on Twitter at Cory Clubb, or if you want to send me an email, you can send it to CoryC@coffeewithkenobi.com.
Very good. And of course, you can find me at Mr. Zer, MRZEHR on Twitter, Dan Zer, CWK on Instagram, and danz@coffeewithkenobi.com on email. Certainly, if you are planning on doing some traveling, whether it's to Celebration London, or you're going to save up and join us on the Halcyon next summer, be sure to go to coffeewithkenobi.com/mousefan-travel. You'll help out the show and get a great vacation for a great price. You help out Coffee with Kenobi in the process, but also have invaluable tips and a no-cost, no-obligation quote. Be sure to check us out on the CWK Alliance for our Patreon page. We get access to exclusive weekly show. I already mentioned Facebook Live. You can find us all over social media and all that good stuff. So again, on behalf of myself, Tom Gross, and Cory Clubb, we will see you next time, friends. Thank you so much. Remember, this is the podcast you're looking for.
This podcast is not endorsed by the Walt Disney Company or Lucasfilm Limited. It is intended for entertainment and informational purposes only. The official Star Wars website can be found at www.starwars.com. Star Wars, all names, sounds, and any other Star Wars-related items are registered trademarks and/or copyrights of Disney and their respective trademark and copyright holders. All original content of this podcast is the intellectual property of Coffee with Kenobi unless otherwise indicated.
This is the podcast you're looking for.
There's no one here.